Welcome to Shining a Light on Your Practice. Nice that you could join us here tonight. Welcome to Shining a Light on Your Practice. Nice that you could join us here tonight. Hope you've had a lovely day, and this is the first time I've been doing this tutorial, so bear with me while I just get used to doing things. And we'll get started, okay? We'll just wait for a couple of minutes and then we'll get started. So just while we're waiting, I'll just do a brief run through. We're just going to discuss shining a light on your practice, and hopefully you'll come out of this with some photography tips to help enhance and encourage photography and videography. It's just information that's helpful if you're a natural health practitioner or anyone else interested. So the reason why I aim this for natural health practitioners is just I feel that there's many out there that seem to not have a total understanding of technology, and it would be great to see themselves out there more. I'd love to see some more natural therapists get out there and promote themselves, and if you use the right sort of photography and lighting, it can encourage your profile and make it better. So I will, okay, so I'm just going to get started now. Just this technology is a little bit slow at times. So I've got a PowerPoint here, which I'm happy to share with you, and I'll see if I can get it up so then you can follow along with me. This is just a bit of process while it does its thing. Okay. Okay, I think it's the one screen. And hopefully that's the right one. If you can let me know if this is what you can see, you can just let me know what you're seeing. Can you see the what is light? So we'll get started then, and just roughly, what is light? It's a source, and there's many different definitions according to the use of the word, whether it's a noun, a verb, or an adjective. So this isn't an English lesson, so we'll just, for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to cover talking about what light is for the purposes of a noun. So it's a source used in ways that can enhance or minimize how something's perceived. So the Merriam-Webster dictionary, I've found the definition that says something that makes vision possible, the sensation aroused by stimulation of the visual receptors, and electromagnetic radiation of any wavelength that travels in a vacuum with a speed of 299,792,458 meters. It's a few too many for me to say properly. So that's roughly around 186,000 miles per second, which is pretty fast. So specifically, such radiation, so it's visible to the human eye. So we've got two forms of light. We've got natural light, and that comes from a source that's considered natural. And examples of this are the sunlight, the moonlight, starlight at night time, candlelight, those lighting those fires, firelight, glowworms, fireflies. That's a form of bioluminescence, and there's been quite a bit of that recently on some of the beaches with some of the seashells, I believe. So there's photographs of all these nice blue glows along the beach, and the aurora. That's something that isn't usually seen to the naked eye. However, if you're fortunate and you go out at the right time, you can see it, and a lot of it is captured with a cell phone. And then we've got the electrical storm, which is lightning. And so forms of artificial light. light from a source that's been made by man, for example, torches, light bulbs, indoor lighting, spotlights, outdoor street lights, car lights, neon signs, glow sticks, any light that's caused by a chemical reaction, which the glow sticks, when you break them, they create a light response. So I've got a video here, which I'm going to try and get running for you to view. Just while I'm getting that sorted, I will just stop sharing for a short time, and I'll just bring up some information here actually, just while you can read that. It's about lighting lingo. So these are just terms of lighting. So there you've got some different things, and just while you can have a bit of a read with that, and I'm just going to see if I can just get this video up and running. Okay, just a bit of technology. See, I'm just going to stop this recording for a minute, just while I... Okay, so I'm just going to stop this briefly, just while I get this sorted. It doesn't want to do that, so we'll just... I'll just give you some photos to look at here, just while I'm trying to sort out things. Just going to stop sharing for a bit. And if anyone has anything they want to ask or have a chat, a question, please feel free to put that in the chat. And my link on my video link isn't working, so I'm just trying to access that now so you can have a watch of it. It's a presenter, it's a photographer, Lindsay Adler, and it's a YouTube tutorial that I found that I thought was really helpful, and you might want to listen to that rather than listening to me talking. Got a technology issues here, just while I get this sorted.
We wanted to use Premiere to create a prose-based visual montage, like a video poem. To do that, we collaborated with one of our poet friends
to write a few paragraphs of verse, with which we shot footage again.
Right, so I'll just get this video up and
Principles
running.
of light. When someone describes
let me know if
light,
you can see that.
looking at a portrait, looking at someone's face, they're usually describing light in about 3 ways. The first one is the intensity or quantity of light. How bright is that light? And when we were using our flash meter there, it was telling us how bright the light was. How bright is it? And if there's 2 lights on the subject, what are the ratios? Is one brighter than the other? How much brighter? So that's one way someone could describe light. But the next way that people typically describe light is going to be the direction of light. Where is that light coming from? What type of shadows is it casting on the face? How is it sculpting the face? And then lastly is going to be the quality of light. Is it hard? Is it soft? What type of feel does that light achieve? So when I'm describing light, I'm thinking of all of those things. I'm thinking of how strong is it? What direction is it coming from? What qualities does it have? And so when you understand each of those things, and how you can achieve changes in those three elements, it's going to give you the ability to create any light that you want, and so many drastically different lighting setups. So let me just expand on that and just kind of reiterate it. The intensity of light is how much light, including ratios between multiple lights. The direction of light would be, is it flat? Or maybe it's directional. Flat light would be lower and more centered, minimal shadows. Directional would be higher, further off to the side, lots of shadows. Both are right, but totally different effects. And then the quality, is it hard, is it soft, is it in between? So let's look at each of these essentials of light and what they mean in an illustration. Again, this is my assistant Raquel. So intensity of light. Looking at the photos here, for example, on the left, there's a ratio where that backlight is bright and the front light is pretty dim. The background is going to be stronger, whereas the quantity of light, the intensity of light on the right-hand side is just dim in general. So like there's just different amounts of light in these photographs. But then direction of light. Picture on the left is going to be much more flat light. And flat light is, you can indicate it or you can see it by minimal shadows. Not many shadows under her nose, not many shadows cast on the side of her face. It's relatively flat, not much dimension to it. But on the extreme opposite end, on the right-hand side, this is very directional light with long shadows cast by her nose. A lot more drama. So this is what I would be talking about if I were talking about direction of light. The first one was intensity, how much light, ratios of light. Then the next one is direction. Where is it coming from? How much shadow? And then lastly is going to be that quality of light. Is the light soft or is it hard light? Is it have gradual shadows or really crisp defined shadows? And that's what I'm looking at in this instance. On the left, look at the shadow of her nose. The shadow of her nose fades off gradually. It's not a deep shadow. It goes from light on the side of her face and fades off slowly to darkness. Whereas on the right-hand side, that line of the shadow is crisp. It goes from highlight to shadow very immediately, very crisp. And so that is going to be a much harder edge. So that's what you're really looking for in hard versus soft light. What is the edge, the transition between highlight and shadow? If it's a harsh transition, it's harder light. If it's a gradual transition, it's softer light. And so these three slides that I just talked about, take a look at them over and over again. And so as you look at portraits that you like or look in a magazine, you can look at it and say, okay, so that light is flat. The direction of light is frontal. You can see by maybe minimal shadows. Oh, and then it's really gradual fade from highlight to shadow. So it's also soft light. You can start to describe the light you see. And then when you can describe it, you can start to understand where the light needs to be placed and the type of modifier that needs to be used to be able to achieve that light.
Okay, so that
This is Wix Studio, built to meet any brief.
so we've
When your
finished
project
that
calls for
now.
bold
And
creativity,
just turn that off.
seamlessly move to Studio, where your vision takes shape. When the brief call.
Okay, so that was a pretty good explanation of the various forms of light. And so there's all sorts of different terms here. These are even more different terms than the lady Lynette suggested. So there's a key light, which is considered to be the main light source that creates the depth, contrast, and dimension in an image. And so we've got a fill light that you use to fill in the shadows. I'll do some demonstrating for you so you can see what I mean shortly. And then we've got continuous lighting. So it's a light that can be adjusted easily and provides consistent lighting. Then we've got the ambient lighting, and that's a light that can be used to create most lighting styles. And then background lighting, a light that can be used to light up specific areas of the frame. So the different setups that you need to take into consideration when you're taking photos. You need to look at the sources of light available. So, for instance, today now where I'm hosting this meeting from, it's quite bright. I've got a sun window right here, and if you can see, if I pull that window up, light lets even more light in, and then if I shut it, it stops the light. So this is like closing the curtains if the light's too intense. And then you can use artificial light, and you can use, if you find that that's more preferable, if you find that that bright light is just too much. It's like, for instance, what I'm doing here, it's very bright. If I choose to just pull those curtains, see that the curtains that I'm using are still letting a lot of light through. So that's like an infused light source. And I've got some different lighting devices with me that I can show you. And we need to possibly, I'll just stop this and turn the camera on so you can have a look at that. So I'm just going to stop sharing just briefly so I can show you some technology that I have for lighting. I have this lighting source here. It's a Bodox LEDP2600. It's a light source, and it's sitting on a stand, and it has buttons that you can turn it on, and it creates a varying. This would work for a continuous light source, and you can change the intensity of it. And as you can see, this changes how it operates. So this is one technology, and then on this other side I've got something called a ring light. It's quite a large light, as you can see, and we can turn it on, and you can see by doing this it's actually taking away the light, and then I can change the intensity of it, make it gold, and it can change. You can see that it really changes. Yet if I hold it here on the side, it changes the light. And you can put a phone or a camera in here. I'm sure a lot of you people have seen it. It's called a circular ring light. And so this one here, so now by me holding myself like this, you can see that it's changed. And then I've turned it off. So this light is possibly not needed at the moment, but sometimes you may find you need to play around just to see if it's something that you think might be helpful. And I've got some little tools here. These are called Lume Cubes, and these are great little lighting sources, and they've got little buttons on them. And sorry, bear with me if they flash in your eyes, I'm sorry. So yeah, you can see that there's a source on them, and you can hold different places if you want to focus on something, or even if you're doing hand photography, you want to light up. It's quite good for that sort of thing, because that way then it defines it. You can see how it just highlights that. It really depends on what it is that you want, and if you shine it this way, it brings the light in. These are just different devices you can use if you're in a room that's very dark, and clinic rooms invariably can be quite dark depending on what sort of lighting you've got in there. And when you're doing some filming or videoing or taking photos with a client on the table, chances are it's a bit daunting if they're here for a photography shoot and you've got all this gear and equipment set up, and it can be a bit daunting. So these little Lume Cubes are really good because you can just use them as just to direct the light in different places, and then you don't have to feel like you're in the middle of a film shoot when you're trying to do some just basic photography, especially if you just want to take a few pictures. And also it can be a bit of a hazard with all the photography gear and power cables and things. So in some ways it's minimal is best if you can, but there are a lot of different options. So I think that might need to be for another day tutorial showing a bit more of this sort of gear, but you can buy these ring lights. I'm sure many of you have seen them, and they probably work better from a distance. And you've got room here to mount phone, and you can undo that. If you've got a camera, then you can put the camera in there, so you can just take that off at the bottom here and mount your camera there. So it's still quite effective. So you can use this for your camera, just screw that into the base of your camera, and then you can just slot it in on the light. So that's very helpful. Okay, and so when you're taking photos, you're doing a setup, it's always useful to take a few sample photos to see what it looks like before you really start shooting. Because if you just take some photos and think, right, this is it, and then tell your model to go away, then you find that it's not quite what you want. It's much more proactive to just check out what sort of photos you want, just take a few sample ones and then go from there. And then you can adjust the scene of your room just to suit the best light practice for your consideration. So another tip is this white board is great for bouncing light. So you can see when I'm holding this, it changes, it reflects the light, it bounces the light back. So if I pull this curtain, you can see it changes the light. It reflects off, being white, it just bounces it back. And that's just from holding it at a certain angle. So sometimes you can get bigger bits of whiteboard, you can use a curtain or anything really, but it needs to be, you might just need somebody to hold it at the right place just so it reflects the light in the right way, so you've got as less shadows as possible. So hopefully that explained something. And so yeah, so these equipment ideas are what I was talking about earlier. So we've got the spotlight, which it's fairly self-explanatory, and you've got the circular ring light, which I've showed you. This is quite a large one. You can get smaller ones, and this one goes from a white light right through to a golden light. And then we've got the Lume Cubes, these ones here, and they charge up just through a USB, and you can just have them as light and they flash and they can do all sorts of things, so they're quite good. And you've got a soft box you can also use as well. I don't have one here to show you, but basically a soft box is like a box that's with material and it's got a reflecting on it, and you put the camera sits and the lighting sits on the top, and you put the products or things to be photographed inside the softbox, and that's usually used for things like products that you want to advertise, or you may have in your practice, you might have some balm or something you're wanting to promote, and that can be good for that. And then so we've got the fixed lights, which is like a standard light, and this one you could consider to be a fixed light. It does vary, but it's good for a direct light, and that can be raised up and down with this too, so it's at the right height of the subject of what it is that you're trying to film, and it also adjusts around as well. And then the reflector is what I was talking about before, which is this, and you can also use something with a foil surface too. I actually don't have one on me at the moment, but you can use something like you can buy them, they're circular items, and they look like foil, but you could probably make your own with some tin foil and just put it over a bit of card and use that as well. So that's the lighting. So we've got some general photography terms I just thought I'd have a chat about too. And these are just some basic terminology. So a JPEG, it's a Joint Photographic Experts Group. This is the official terminology. And it's a digitally compressed format for an image, and it can be stored for use on websites, used for sharing images and emails, blogs, and online. And it's the compressed form of the image, and it isn't necessarily the best way of compressing the image for use for clarity. So a PDF is the document format, and that basically has a combination of images, words, text, images, all together and shrunk down, so it's in a format that is easy to be shared, and you can't generally make adjustments to it unless you have access to that document. And then a PNG is another form of graphic file, and that has the strongest, best form of saving the file, and it's the best, clearest way of putting a lot of information into an image for sharing for later. And so pixels are like little squares that you see when you see an image that may have been blown up or overblown up, and you can see these lots of little squares. So a pixel is just one little square, and then lots of little squares are all made up, and that's how the images are created. So I think that's enough talking from me for now. So if there's anything anyone wants to know, please feel free to contact me or leave me a message, and we'll be in touch. Okay, bye.